Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another business law lesson. Today we're going to be covering Chapter 4. Chapter 4 was very interesting. It covered topics like what is criminal law, criminal intent, classifications of crimes, crimes in the business world, and I will be sharing connections and key ideas that stood out to me. So let's start off with the first one. What is criminal law?
I've been wondering that myself.
Yeah, it's interesting stuff for sure. When it comes to the business world, certain unethical business practices have been outlawed by the United States government. Certain crimes include tax evasion, fraud, Ponzi schemes, embezzlement, and insider trading. These crimes and others require, quote, a higher level or burden of proof, in order to prevail in court. In a criminal case, the prosecutor has the burden of proving beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant committed the alleged crime, close quote. Without this amount of evidence, there could be issues in proving beyond reasonable doubt that the person in question is guilty of the charged crime. Additionally to this, and it was touched upon in Chapter 1, the due process of law requires them to be notified of criminal charges. They also need to have access to what is and what is not legal. So that includes laws need to be posted. So you need to be able to have access to them. So it's not like, hey, that's illegal by the way, but we never told you. Interesting.
Yeah.
The idea of cruel and unusual punishments is also touched upon within this chapter. The justice system cannot sentence punishments that are too severe or too violent. An example the textbook says is 12 years for theft is not cruel and unusual, but the ancient practice of removing of someone's hand for theft is deemed cruel and unusual by the United States of America standards.
Or killing them.
It's pretty cruel and unusual for theft.
I'd say.
Let's talk about intent.
Okay.
A crime consists of criminal acts and requisite of a criminal intent. For example, you can want to steal something, but if you do not go through with it, you cannot be convicted. Or inversely, a person may not be forced to commit a crime at gunpoint, and if they do, they are not found guilty because they did not desire to commit the crime. Now let's go ahead and talk about the classifications of crimes. So there are two different classifications of crimes. Can you name them?
No.
That's all right. They'll sound really familiar when I say them. Misdemeanor and felony.
I would not have guessed that, though.
It's all right. Crimes are classified according to the gravity of their offenses. Felonies are serious crimes like murder, larceny, bribery, or arson. These may be subjected to the punishment of execution.
What is larceny?
It's like stealing, but in a grand scale, like embezzlement would be counted as larceny. A misdemeanor is a serious crime like traffic tickets or theft of small amounts of money.
Like $5.
Yeah, exactly. Great insight. So let's talk about crimes in the business world. Corporations are typically liable for crimes committed by their employees. To be fully liable, a supervisor must have either had a knowledge or authorized the crime or simply have been able to prevent it. Interesting, right?
Mm-hmm.
White-collar crime is nonviolent crime committed by a business. The following crimes are examples of white-collar crime. Mail and wire fraud. A use of mail to defraud the... let's see. Yeah, which is a use of mail to defraud people. The Postal Service, which was protected and proposed by the Constitution, is not something that the federal government wants to mess around with. Securities fraud, when a person provides false information to investors to influence them to buy stocks. Ponzi schemes are a form of this as they get investors to invest a lot of money into a failing or not secure business. Larceny is a part of robbery. Embezzlement is when someone steals from the company and is part of larceny. Excuse me. Extortion is when someone is threatened or demanded by a person or company to give money. So like threatening, if someone was like, if you don't give me $100, I'll tell your boss that you did really bad on your performance review.
Oh.
Yeah. False pretenses is when taking out a bank loan but not being able to pay it, but you lied about it in the first place. Like, oh, I have these stocks up for collateral, but you lied about it, you know?
Mm.
So, and forgery, last of the aforementioned list, is making a document to look like it was from someone else. Very big no-no. So let's go ahead and jump into the key connections and ideas. So something that I connected this week's reading to is from a movie starring Tom Cruise called Minority Report.
He just put it on like an hour ago.
After reading that chapter, I was like, let's put it on and talk about it. So in this movie, it deals with like intent and going through with criminal charges. You know, the opening scene is someone who is about to commit a crime of passion and murder their spouse. But because they have the ability to tell the future in this movie, they stopped the crime from happening and arrested him for what they called pre-murder, which is very interesting and a topic of debate that I thought was an interesting thing to touch about. Just because of the nature of intent. Anyway, also connections to the previous chapter include talking about crime, violating aspects of the Constitution, criminal procedures, and things like that. Something that stood out to me was the definitions of each crime, which I'm sure also stood out to you. I think that the coolest part of the chapter was talking about how citizens need to know or have access to what certain laws are. I think that that's a very important thing, because the government shouldn't just pass a law of, let's say,
tell anyone.
Yeah, like you can't have your lights on past 12:30, but if you were never told you can't have your lights on past 12:30, they shouldn't be able to arrest you. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Stay tuned. I'm sure we're going to more chapters as we go.